So you think you know this friendly face, right? I mean, it's the Labrador Retriever. But what if I told you the story of this dog is packed with surprises? We're talking geographic mix-ups, a brush with total extinction, and a twist that changes how we think about pretty much every dog breed. First, let's just talk about how popular they are. After an unbelievable 31-year run as the #1 dog in the US, they finally slipped to #2 in 2022. Still, that's just incredible. They are an absolute fixture in our lives, and for very good reason. And yeah, that rock-solid reputation, it's built on qualities we all recognize and love. They're friendly, they're energetic, they're endlessly playful. But honestly, calling them just a family dog doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. I mean, look at this. Their intelligence and their calm, trainable nature make them absolutely essential for some of the most important jobs a dog can have. You see them as guide dogs, in search and rescue teams, working with police and military units. It really does seem like there's almost nothing a lab can't do. But to really get this dog, we have to fix a huge, common mistake. The name Labrador Retriever, it's kind of a red herring. This dog isn't from Labrador. Its real story starts on the nearby island of Newfoundland, way back in the 1800s. So get this. The ancestor of every lab we know and love today was a tough-as-nails working dog called the St. John's Water Dog. And you can forget fetching ducks for sport. These dogs were serious partners to Newfoundland fishermen, built to work day in and day out in the freezing North Atlantic. And the contrast here is just fascinating, isn't it? The original St. John's dog was a fisherman's right-hand man, hauling nets, diving for fish, and they often had these cool white tuxedo markings. But the modern lab, oh, it was shaped entirely in the UK to be a gentleman's sporting companion, bred for those solid colors we all know now. And in a really tragic twist, the original St. John's dog is completely gone, extinct. This story perfectly captures their incredible instinct. This is a real account of a dog named Brandy who was brought to Scotland in the 1830s. That unstoppable drive to retrieve something, that sheer stamina in the water, those were the exact traits that made the British aristocracy sit up and take notice. So how in the world does a Canadian fishing dog become a British icon? Well, it's a story of being saved right from the brink of extinction. The original St. John's dog was on its way to vanishing completely, and its survival and its total transformation is all thanks to a handful of British nobles who saw something really special in them. And you can see the story unfold right here, over decades. It all kicked off in the 1830s, when aristocrats started bringing them over for duck hunting. By the 1880s, you had a few key families working together, carefully breeding these dogs to create the blueprint for all future Labradors. It was a long, careful process of refining and standardizing the breed, which finally led to its official recognition in the early 1900s. But here is the absolutely crucial and tragic irony of the whole story. While these British nobles were perfecting the Labrador and their fancy kennels, the original St. John's dog was completely disappearing from its home. Heavy taxes and a British quarantine that stopped any new dogs from coming in basically spelled the end for the breed in Newfoundland. The last two known St. John's dogs, both males, died in the 1970s. And just like that, they were gone. And this is where the story gets way bigger than just one dog. The Labrador's creation is a perfect window into a much broader idea, the invention of the modern dog breed itself. Because, before the Victorian era, our whole concept of a purebred dog didn't really exist. For centuries, a dog's identity was basically its job. A terrier was any dog that dug into the earth. A hound was any dog that hunted. It was that simple. But in the 1800s, everything changed, all thanks to a new obsession among the British elite. And that obsession was a movement called the dog fancy. For the very first time, people started breeding dogs not for what they could do, but for exactly how they looked. The whole goal was to create these standardized, uniform breeds that could be judged against each other in the new fashionable world of dog shows. This completely flipped the script on what made a good dog. The question went from, can it hunt, to does it have the perfect head shape and the perfect tail? It sparked this massive explosion of new breeds, all of them focused on achieving physical perfection over raw ability. And because the Labrador was born right smack in the middle of this movement, it's never stopped evolving. We are still shaping it to our tastes. And the most obvious, easy-to-see example of this is its color. You'd think the chocolate lab is a more recent thing, wouldn't you? But believe it or not, the gene for that beautiful chocolate coat was there from the very beginning. It's just that for decades, breeders thought it was a flaw. It took all the way until the mid-20th century for tastes to change and for that color to finally become popular. The gene wasn't new, it was just waiting in the wings. And we can actually trace its path. Researchers have followed the pedigrees all the way back and found that Buccleuch Avon, one of the breed's key foundational sires, born way back in 1885, carried that recessive chocolate gene. It was passed down silently, generation after generation, through black and yellow dogs until breeders finally decided they liked the look and started intentionally selecting for it. And that evolution is still happening today. There's a really noticeable split between what people call English Labradors, which are bred for dog shows, and American Labs, which are bred for fieldwork. The show lines are heavier, stockier, built to match that breed standard perfectly. But the field lines? They're lighter, more athletic, and bred for super high energy and hunting drive. It's a perfect example of form versus function playing out in real time, all within a single breed. So, the Labrador isn't some ancient, timeless creature. It's a human invention, barely 150 years old, and it's constantly being shaped by what we value, which leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. As we continue to change, what will we ask the Labrador to become next?